Today I will be talking about enzymes. Enzymes are made of amino acids, so they are basically proteins. But not all proteins are enzymes, because enzymes do one thing differently. They help speed up the reaction. So, as you can see here in this graph, an activation without enzyme would be much higher, but an activation with an enzyme would be much lower. So this causes two things. One, the reaction would be much quicker, because since there's less energy, there is a quicker process to it. The second thing is that since there is less energy used, the amount of energy lost is less also, so it conserves energy quite well. So enzymes usually have reactants and products. The reactants are the substrate, which are the chemicals that come into the enzyme, and the product is what comes out. So now the substrate moves to one spot in the enzymes, the active site. The active site is specifically made for a particular type of substrates. However, they are not stiff. They are flexible because of induced fit. It allows them to shape around the substrate where it can optimally help in a reaction. So it is specific towards the substrate, yet it can change its shape to help process it. As you can see here, this enzyme has a vague template for the substrates, and once it comes in, it will efficiently cover it, making the reaction much easier. So induced fit does a few things, one of which is creating a good pH level for the reaction to occur. Another thing is to break the bonds from the substrates by stretching them. And another thing is to secure them in place so they can be tightly secured to the enzyme for a reaction. So one of the factors into the induced fit is the pH, and the pH optimally works around 8. The reason why, if the pH is too low, then it becomes too acidic and it can denature the enzyme, and if it becomes too high, it can also denature the enzyme. A bit of redundancy there. So another factor that would help in the reaction is temperature. The optimal temperature would be 37 Celsius because that is our body temperature, and since enzymes are in our body, that's a good thing. Now, as you can see here, the higher the heat, the more movement you'll get from the substrate in order to hit your enzyme. However, if the temperature gets too high, it will denature the enzyme. So the most optimal temperature would be right before the enzyme would be denatured, and of course that is 37 degrees Celsius. So enzymes can also work in other environments too. There are enzymes that work in lower pH levels, like our stomach. There are heat-tolerant enzymes that can work at higher heat, and they are meant to live in these environments where they can avoid being denatured. However, they can be denatured at other levels. So when it comes to enzymes, there's also a way to stop them, and that is inhibitors. Now this is a competitive inhibitor, and it binds to the active site of the enzyme so the substrate cannot connect there. So there is a non-competitive inhibitor on the left side of this picture. So right here it shows that the allosteric site, which is another site entirely, is connected with an inhibitor, which changes the active site so the substrate cannot enter. This also stops the reactions. The allosteric site can also be connected to an activator, so it can open up or change it, the active site for the substrate to enter. So what makes up these inducers and activators? Well, there's two things: inorganic and organic materials. Well, not exactly. Coenzymes and cofactors. However, most organic materials are coenzymes and most inorganic materials are cofactor. Coenzymes are mostly organic, like vitamins. Of course, if we don't have enough vitamins, we suffer from vitamin deficiency, and our enzymes wouldn't work, and we suffer because of that. So there are activators for enzymes. And cofactors are usually inorganic. They bind to the enzymes as a permanent resident or just bind loosely to the substrate. So they could be zinc or iron, usually metallics. And lastly, just to finish this, I found an interesting GIFT. There's another inhibitor can be a toxin or poison, and it is permanent. So nerve gas can stop an enzyme completely, and that is a frightening thing. So I'm going to show you what snake venom does to blood. Maybe you have seen it or not. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, Miss Gleicher. Yeah, it was a good amount of work. I spent a few hours on this. Luckily, I'm mostly done with my testing finals. Anyway, it was great having you for a year, and hopefully this helped me in the future. I can't wait for college.